Hello, friends, and welcome to the Weekend Catch Up Club, the coffee morning show brought to you live every Saturday direct to Facebook and available later on demand at youtube.com/gamertagged and podcast services. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. It is the senior level designer from CD Projekt Red, Max Pears.
Hey mate, how you doing? Thank you very much for having me on the show. An absolute pleasure to be here.
You're absolutely welcome, and I am really excited to chat to you about your
Mm.
entire journey, your video game history, and everything that has brought you to Poland and as to where you are just now.
Yes, mate. No, it's going to be an exciting one. I hope people are looking forward to it, and I hope it helps answers question about the industry, level design, as well as those who may aspire to follow into this career path. So I'm excited about this, mate.
Absolutely. So speaking about this career path into level design,
Mm.
you have not one but two pretty cool books that you have. Oh, the second one's just came out. So the first one came out a
Yes.
little while ago.
I'll put these out here so we can do this magic trick.
Look at that. Let's
Whoa.
design combat and let's design exploration. So come on then,
Yes.
give us the skinny. Tell the audience what it's all about.
Sure thing, mate. So this here is my level design series where I focus on individual elements of level design for this, as we talked about. The first one is called Let's Design Combat. And in this one, I talk about kind of what you should think about when you're designing your levels, how to make your combat more engaging in them, certain guidelines to help encourage either movement as well as different types of enemies, how to best use them in your spaces. And then moving on to the second book, which is Let's Design Exploration, in which I talk about that of traversal. How do you actually get the player to move through your space? What is the best way to go through and bring them and guide the player there? And the real, fun element that I wanted to add of this series was the fact that these are, not exactly the thickest books, but the reason is it's more like a pickup read at any time, revisit this, and this way people can keep them handy by their desks and really just flick through and revisit at a certain point when they need to from it, mate.
Yeah, I just finished the second one about an hour
Mm,
ago, and I read the first one over the weekend as well. And what struck me about them was just how bite sized a lot of the chapters are,
mm,
how just easily explained they all are, just really useful core skills, core information about the different elements to your
yeah.
combat designs, different encounter designs, environment design, and level design. And I actually really enjoyed reading them, not least
Thank
because
you.
of the fun illustrations which are peppered throughout the books as well.
Yes, yeah, that was the other thing is I wanted to do when going through all of the design books on my shelf and other ones that are great for people to read, but there's a lot of knowledge to digest, and sometimes, especially with this being games being very visual as well, I wanted to add these elements so anyone could go through, as I said, and just have a highlight, if you will, for those who I'm getting mirrored wrong here. For those who can go through and just understand it more. Because like most people, I kind of like to learn by seeing and doing. So the fact that you can literally take any image from these books and then recreate them in an editor, and it should show you the basics of the point in there. And I mean, that's also how I created these pictures as well, thanks to Jay and Keshnia, who were the two artists on these books, who did a phenomenal job. But with the process when we started through was me blocking them out actually in Unity or Unreal, taking the screenshots and then talking through with them as they talked about what they believe was the best kind of your way to bring them to life outside of the block out. And this was really important to me again, because one of the other elements I found is in a lot of game related content, a lot of it talks about theory. And theory is not
Mm,
bad or anything like that, but you'll find that theory doesn't always translate to actual practical results. So from this is another reason why I wanted to keep it bite-sized, keep the information clear and concise, as well as have these illustrations, is because the fact that these are tried and true tested methods. Now, like I said, it may not work with every game because each game is its own challenge. Each game is
sure.
you trying to figure it out, but it is there to give you the kind of base to build on, tweak, move around elements to then make it fit within your kind of guidelines.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like the main inspiration, as well as like hearing a lot of friends of mine who are much more experienced than me, but they talked about writing these books and they're like, oh, there's so much to put in, and I've seen some of these books which are like that thick and you could kill a man with them. But the
Use it as half high cover because it's that
exactly
thick.
exactly they could do that with them. That's why I thought it'd be better to just, like I said, focus on a topic with each book to build the series. So again, you can pick up, maybe your game won't have combat, or maybe you feel that you understand exploration enough for your game, so you can pick and choose when to come in with it. So yeah, that's one of the main inspiration out there. But again, it's been fantastic to have them and to be able to release them as well. It's really nice that they're out there to the public.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed more for myself as I was reading the first book, which I ended up
Mm,
being wrong because I was enjoying it, but my initial thought was like, oh, this is all for cover based kind of shooter types of games, and that was
mm,
that was my getting it wrong because that turned out to be not the case at all. And I was thinking, well, how does this apply to something like Doom or a first-person shooter or something like that? But and so my initial thought was like, oh, this is just for cover shooters. But then as I was getting through, it's like, actually, no, that's totally wrong. I was totally wrong, and the fundamentals completely apply because when you're talking about um where to place cover, you're not talking about the snap to cover mechanics. You're talking about in general the the
yes.
the player agency, the player's location in a particular combat basin or combat environment. What do
Mm,
they see? How do they see the objective, the I had a great phrase, the guiding lines,
yes.
all of these kind of things. So it is transferable into completely different styles of games. It's not just, and again, it was my mistake thinking, oh, it's just for cover. It's obviously talking about like the Division or something like that, or Gears of
Mm,
War, but it's not. It's transferable. Those lessons are transferable to radically different types of games. And I thought, of course, this all the stuff is so obvious, it makes sense. But then when you read it in such a digested, concise
mm,
manner, it's like a penny drop. It's like, of course, of course. And then when you go back to even playing these games, then you start to analyze it and look at it in a different light. And you can see, oh, okay, so that's where that rule kind of applied there. And you can see the learnings, and you can begin to kind of see the matrix,
yeah.
underneath all of these beautiful rendered environments. So yeah, I thought I had a great time reading them. Really, really good.
Awesome, mate. Yeah, that's it. I think it's interesting because, like I said, one of the challenges is that of like you keep it general enough because, as I said, these are not hard rules. Each game is different, but also making sure that people understand these are still applicable. I had people who messaged me after the first book came out saying, "Oh, but this isn't workable for an isometric view," and I was like, no, that's not true at all. Again, your perspective has changed, but like the elements are still there. Like, hearing from why do I keep forgetting her name? It's not Liz England. It's oh, I'm gonna forget her name for this one, but it's a great level designer. She worked at Insomniac, but before that, she worked on Hyperlight Drifter, which was an isometric game, and just talking about how the lessons she learned from both of them and how they were applied to both, despite again being vastly different in how they look.
Mm,
So it's just, I think sadly people get like confused of, oh, it's a third person, it's a first person, and those do change elements of your level, but not really as much as people would think when you stop, sit down. Now, like if it's a close quarter combat, some of these rules will definitely not apply because you don't need cover if you're Kratos swinging your axe around, because that's only going to hinder you.
yeah.
But again, it's that understanding of it all and figuring that stuff there. But yeah, it's nice that again people have this stuff I wish I learned before I got into the industry, and hopefully help take people's levels further to higher quality and standard, and again way better than where I was when I started. So that's what I hope
Yeah.
people gain from it.
And talking about like archetypes of games as well, it's
Mhm.
so transferable to even like 2D Metroidvanias. I'm thinking of Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Ori and the Blind
Yeah.
Forest. All of that stuff. It is transferable. Yes, you don't necessarily have cover, but you're using the environment to either protect yourself or to your advantage with flicking switches and avoiding combat, or breakable objects in the environment. Is those
Yeah.
breakable objects are there for a reason, is to guide the player to either a little hidden spot, a little Easter egg, or
Mm.
that's the way you need to go, but maybe you can't get there just yet, so you have to develop those skills. And one of the chapters of your book talks about how to like gradually upskill the player until they have kind of mastered a particular skill set, and then the
Yeah.
challenge is raised, which I thought was really interesting. And it's kind of that Miyagi kind of mentality. It's like you don't know you're getting Miyagi'd until you've actually just like pulled off this impossible move, and it's like, oh, that's what that was teaching me, and now I can actually do it off the cuff as if it's nothing. And it's the tools of the trade is pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
man. I think that's also the funnest part is like it's like cinematography in films, right? Is like when a level design is done so well, 9 times out of 10 people won't talk about it. So it's similar to that of game design. And that's when you know you've done a good job, right? Because you haven't broken anything. But how we try influence and teach the players is all subconsciously through the mind of the player, which is again such a hard tool to do, but also so rewarding when people, like you said, they master it and they didn't even realize they've mastered it until that next step. So
Yeah.
yeah, it really works for that. And hopefully again, it's just showing how we communicate in the levels itself. It's not just about pretty worlds, it's the environment artists help to make come true. We're doing it in a certain manner to again help educate and guide players through.
Yeah, 100%. So Max Pears, seven
Mm,
7 years experience in the industry, or maybe a little
yes.
bit more than that. You are senior level designer at CD Projekt Red, one of
Mhm.
the biggest independent developers in the industry. How
Yeah.
did how did you get there? Tell me all about how it all started.
Yeah, sure. So we're gonna go. Yeah, it all begins 1994.
Yeah,
I think
all
it
the
was
way back.
1996. Yeah, 1996 actually with them. So for me, when I was a kid, one of my earliest memories is watching my dad and my uncle playing Metal Gear Solid One. And at the time, it was when Snake was versus Gray Fox, and obviously as a child, nothing is cooler than that of a robotic ninja, right? Like that
Um,
stuff.
Still nothing's cooler than that.
Exactly, right? And to see the impact that my dad and uncle were having, as they were taking turns trying to figure them out, pressing this button, and it had, like I said, a visceral like result on the screen, just blew me away. And I got hooked on games from there, and kind of always knew that this was kind of the route I wanted, and kind of went from that point. Now I was trying to research, especially at the time, how do you get into video games?
Mm.
And there was people before me who had it harder than me. But even then, when I was doing it, I was like, how do you do it? And
Yeah, there's
asking,
not really internet that we know about like today. It's
yeah,
very very different. There's no real LinkedIn as such. So like, where do you even begin?
exactly. Like there wasn't as great resources like your channel here, mate, where people are talking freely about it. Like this stuff you might find in magazines, but again, most magazines were talking about the game itself, not necessarily the people that were making it. And
Yeah.
again, rightfully so, the bigger audience is about consuming games.
Mhm.
And I figured out there were courses available where I went to university called Teesside University. To get into there, I had to pass like a certain exam with like, showing that I was interested. And to do that, I made a few Flash games. Again, nothing major. Like the first one I ever made was these rocks constantly spawning. Player was in the spaceship and you can move left
Yeah.
or right to dodge them. So along
Nice.
those lines,
R.I.P. Flash. Seriously.
Yeah, that's it, God, action script. And also, yeah, people hope we don't have
Flashbacks
to
to
suffer.
they'll get flashbacks at college to using Director and Flash at the same time. Macromedia Flash. Oh my goodness.
Yes, right. And from there, it was me starting to figure out, okay, how do I get in there? I said, made that. Luckily for me, Little Big Planet had come out and they had their level editor. So I was able to make small levels in there. And, really thankful to Media Molecule because that was what helped me stand out and was able to get me into my university. Now, I went to Teesside University in the UK. If you can't tell by my very thick English accent, I am from the UK. And
I'm disappointed. I was expecting a Polish accent.
Ah, mate, I hate it. It's amazing how many people are considering. Like when you look at my name, I'm like, there's a lot of Mateus's, Macieks, and for some reason I'm confused why people look at my name and I'm like, there's no X's here out in Poland, guys. But no, it was that elements, and yeah, that's where I decided to go study from there, champ. Really for it,
That's
but
absolutely incredible. Yeah.
yeah, and it was nice to get the opportunity. So from there, it didn't just end there. End of the story. We can wrap up the episode, mate. We're done from here. No. So from there, obviously, I took my studies very serious. But one thing that I noticed is, and what most people realize from going to university or like as soon as they finish school, like no one is going to make you like finish anything. It's on you to go off, learn, get better, improve, right?
Yeah.
And from that point, I was able to start to see that, I was definitely not the best level designer at the time in my class, but I knew I had to go improve and was doing personal work on the side. Now, we had an opportunity to do a sandwich year or a year in industry, as some might refer to it as. And that's where a mobile company called Fog Media came and did a talk at my school. And this was the craziest bit, like for me still, that just I don't understand is, so there was about, to say that everyone was invited from from all years, like first, second, and third years. There was less than 100 of us that went to this talk,
Oh wow. Okay.
and then less than 5 people approached the presenter, Craig, who'd done the presentation at the end. And that just made me even more kind of shocked, because here's like this opportunity.
Mm.
This guy's taking time out of his day. So I approached him. I showed him more of my portfolio I had made at the time. This was more than just a flash game compared to when I got into university. I'd had a few like levels made, a few different things on mobile. And so they were interested to hire me for a year in industry. And that's where I got to work firstly on mobile
Wow.
games. So that's the first role I ever got in industry. And it wasn't necessarily just level design. I had to wear many different hats. I had to learn about programming. I know a bit, by no means am I the best, again, programmer. I'm still probably like at a junior level at the state of
Yeah.
my programming. But it was great to, again, learn those different elements. We released, it was 6 mobile games throughout that year. Some reached into the app charts, top 100 and top 50, which again is incredible. We even made a game for the Ouya, RIP Ouya.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So it was kind of one of those elements that we got to try different things, and it's exciting and it's nice. I still have my Ouya up in the attic. But, like,
You
I've
should
got
get
it.
that in like a glass case or something. It's a
Oh,
little
for sure.
tribute museum exhibit.
That's it. So no, after that, this is when like I really kind of preference on people to do networking, because this is where kind of my networking really paid off.
Yeah.
So at my university, we have a conference every year called Animex, where we get industry professionals to come in and talk about it. And this is where I met a great man called Andrew Willens, who is now game director over at Sumo Digital Newcastle.
Digital. Yeah.
And he was at the time a senior game designer. And I actually volunteered to work at this Animex. So I would, set up certain stuff like chairs, microphones, pass it around when people asked. And I got to know Andy through that. He was super friendly with me. We had good banter. And I said, hey, man, do you mind checking out my portfolio? And at this time, I said, I released a few mobile games on top, showed him. He was, oh, this is super cool. And we just got a bit of more banter and talking back and forth. Now, he was not the only one, but he will be a recurring character in my backstory for this. And from there, we then, I don't know if the competition's still around, but in the UK, there's a great competition called Dare to be Digital up in Dundee. And so I got a team together. There's 5 of us in total from my university, and we made it into the finals. Now, this is a huge thing. As I said at the time, there's like normally 150, if not more, teams that apply, and it gets like whittled down to 15 teams. And we were the first one from my university to do it, which is incredible. And it was really cool because we had to make a game in, I think it's 7 weeks, and in the last week we present the game at a small festival.
Right.
So this was, a great moment for us. Now we decided to do a really nice moment, or should I say, a really cool game, which was based in augmented reality, when we try and bring the imaginary friend of kids to life. and where it's like
Okay.
a character that the players have to defend from enemies coming and try and steal him and take him away.
Right.
And depending again where you move the iPad, how close, and we had like loads of different fun things. If you search Pygmy Panic on YouTube, you'll find the trailer. We've got some really nice elements to it. And turns out one of the judges was Andy, who I'd met like a year earlier. So he came over, we started talking again and went out drinking. And it was one of those things of, again, the fact that he'd seen my work. He was now a judge here. He'd now seen again what the team had done. It started to build like a good relationship with
Mhm.
him. So after I finished all this, sadly we did not win the competition, but I will say as a game designer, I had the best memory and best moment in my career from that. There was a grandfather and his granddaughter had come to the festival, and she was playing the game, and he comes up over to me and says, "Oh, so when's the game coming out?" I said, "We're still trying to figure that out."
Mhm.
And he said, "Well, she suffers from autism, and I haven't actually seen her like this, like in a long time. And just to see like the smile on her face, the smile on his face,
Yeah.
and to see like games connect there is one of the most beautiful moments I've ever had as a creator in
Yeah.
this industry." So no, this was it's a moment that stuck with me. Like that was back in 2013, 2014. That was so still almost
Yeah.
10 years on.
That's
You know,
that is something that is obviously a beautiful story, and a beautiful memory that you've got, but we
mm,
don't often talk about the in the games industry about the legacy that game developers leave behind and the way in which
mm,
games affect people. We talk about it in terms of fans and enjoying the games and everything like that. Cosplay and how
yeah.
much they care about a particular character or a particular game, but it's really that legacy that you and other developers are a part of to really help and shape and make an impact
Mm.
on people's lives. And what a privilege, but also a lot of stress and a lot of pressure for sure. But it
Yeah.
is it is quite a gift at the same time, because
Mm,
you've got that memory now that you knew that particular moment, that particular game, that project that you and the team created
yeah.
really impacted and struck with somebody that in such an unexpected way. And God, man, that's just beautiful to think about.
Yeah, mate. I think it's part of the reason we don't talk about it or see it as much is due to the fact that like it's like so many people don't know who or how many creators there are involved. Sorry, my brother's trying to call me, always trying to ruin my stories, always from distance or next to me. But
He's just
no,
he's just he's just annoyed that you haven't mentioned him yet in your life
yeah,
story. That's
well,
why.
he's a part I try to forget. You know, when you're an identical twin like we are, you know, what I mean, one lives it, the other lives it. I will say that that has to be my funny. I'll tell a story a little bit later about how he stole my moment for being a twin as well. I'm going to get onto that one, but the yeah, I think it's again because of the fact that we don't necessarily show who makes it. You know,
Mhm.
when you look at, and when I say that is like how we give the credit sequence respect as well. You know, when you think about films and any creative endeavor, you know, the credits are right at the end and there's so many names coming up.
Yeah,
Why would you expect anyone to sit through it
yeah,
and also wait to read those names either? But I thought like in Metal Gear Solid 5, they did a great one where each mission started and they would put the name of who like worked on that particular mission
mhm,
as the like, you know, as the camera was like coming in, the helicopter was about to land, or as the players exploring through the mountains. So I think like again, this is off topic, but a way to like help improve that is us thinking more creatively about the
yeah.
credits and that. So, you know, who knows if someone will do it? I hope that inspires someone who's in a more powerful position than I to eventually helpfully push that to the norm for it.
100%, because we don't often
Mm,
know the people behind the games, and the more that we can do to try and raise that awareness, and like my little tiny podcast, I get to talk to amazing creatives behind some of my favorite games and some games that I maybe are not terribly aware of, but the just hearing the stories of you and other guests that I've been fortunate enough to have on
mm,
is such a privilege. And it's it's not the you I like to think it's not the usual style of podcast necessarily, where it's just the promotional junket of the creative
Yeah.
directors, the game directors. They have to promote when the game comes out, and I mean, as much as I love Cory Barlog and Neil Druckmann, etc. I'm probably never going to be able to get the opportunity to talk to them, but that's fine. The mega media outlets can do that and do it incredibly well. But I also like to hear the smaller stories,
Yeah.
from the environment artist or from the concept artist or the level designer, and pick their brains about what went into some particular facet of the game that I probably love or maybe are just unaware of, and doing a little more of an awareness campaign through that
Yeah.
channel. So.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's also the other thing is there are so many people involved, as we just talked about with the credits, like that make these great games. Now, Corey and Neil obviously help when you're in that position to direct and unify all
Mhm.
visions. But again, like everyone, it takes a whole lot of people to make these games, and it's great to be able to talk with you and for you to get other amazing guests on here to hear their side. So hopefully, like we said, we can let people know and inspire and bring up more for them, mate. So fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you were doing the networking thing. You were
Yes.
showing, chatting to as many people,
Mm.
potential mentors as possible, or certainly people that you revered and had the opportunity to just like seize and pick their brains on your portfolio and stuff. That ultimately led to you working at Ubisoft. Was that your first like
Correct.
mega publisher kind of role?
Yes, it was. And thanks to, again, like I said, meeting Andy there, I had a couple of mates who graduated the year before I did, who went over to Ubisoft. And this is where I met a great, well, now he's the level design director called Manny Diaz over at Ubisoft. And he was giving a talk. I showed him the game that I worked on. And from there, it was, again, they were kind enough to give me a chance. And yeah, it was the first big one. No pressure. Was not was not worried at all. Smooth sailing.
Yeah.
No, it was a great challenge there, and again, amazing people to meet and to learn from. And yeah, working on Division Underground was such an eye opening because at the time, what we now know as with Destiny, Division, Anthem, that
Mhm.
this genre wasn't really a thing at the time. And to see
That's right.
how it is expanded, and you've seen great ones come around and other ones improve and learn. It's been it was an amazing time. Honestly, I was there for 2.5 years,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was fantastic. Everyone was very nice. How Ubisoft designs, like, especially, I think if you are a young designer, going to Ubisoft is great because they have so many resources with the amount of like studios under that Ubisoft umbrella.
Mhm.
They have their own like mini conferences where again people share from different studios, different perspectives, and you can learn so much. Honestly, I think I'm very grateful to have my career in AAA start there.
Yeah, again, the wealth of IP that Ubisoft has as well. So you're going
Mm,
to get an opportunity to have an impact, or exposure to just it's not just one like major AAA franchise. It's like a dozen AAA franchises,
yeah.
and yeah, being at Ubisoft is must have been a hell of an exciting opportunity. And I can imagine those 2.5 years must have maybe not felt like dog years, but in terms of experience in which you're getting exposed to, must be like so condensed into such a quick time frame that you're really
Mm,
learning at probably a rapid pace, but you're just kind of soaking it all up like a sponge because you've got such an amazing like opportunity, and you're exposed to these like raft of talented hundreds and maybe even thousands of talented other developers,
mm.
artists, QA teams, and just directors, motion capture performers, and all this kind of stuff. It must have been pretty mind blowing, but you must have been like a Cheshire cat every day. I can imagine.
Oh yeah, mate. It was like I said, just so grateful to have that chance and to be able to learn from all these amazing people. Like when I think back to who like my seniors and leads, who are still they're not gone anywhere, but like the opportunity to learn from them in particular has been, it's just something I will never forget, and always these people that I hold in the highest regard. Just great people, and the fact that I work on Division because we worked with massive studios, Red
Yeah.
Storm, Annecy. The fact that we were able to, like, for me, I was lucky enough to go over to Sweden to work with the team there for a month,
Mm.
and to be able to again chat to all these amazing developers who are thinking slightly different to it the way that I'm thinking, and trying to figure out, what do I learn to take from, what is it that I'm going to store in my memory banks, and all of these elements. And it's, yeah, something again that I just, yeah, couldn't ask for a better start. Honestly,
Yeah.
couldn't ask for a better start.
Incredible. And of course, that brings you up to Poland to work on
Yes.
to work with CD Projekt Red and working on Cyberpunk 2077. I can
Mm,
imagine that was, I don't know obviously how you got the opportunity to do it. We'll dive into that a little bit as well. But that must have been like a holy crap moment. I get to work with the developers behind The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, universally praised and rightly so as a masterpiece of not just open world design, but character writing,
mm,
um, reinventing to a degree what an open world game can be in
yeah.
terms of interconnected narrative design and just an incredible piece, a incredible creation as well.
Mm.
And so, come on, tell me all about how that opportunity came about.
Yeah, this is a great one for me. Just what happened was, we had, so two things that happened with that was the fact that a friend of mine, as I talked about earlier, I was sent over to Massive Sweden for a month. We had one of the level designers from Ubisoft Sofia come over and join us for 6 months. His name is Yasin. Lovely guy, again, someone that I just enjoy, his company and just learning from him so much. And he ended up going over there, and he'd told me that they had people working, looking for people to expand upon.
Mhm. Yep.
And obviously, after playing Witcher as well, and I was what, 20 or 25 at the time when I had, well, 24 when they approached me, and 25 when I moved over. And I was just like, do you know what? To be able to travel doing the things that you love, like,
Hmm.
you cannot ask for anything else. So I decided to take the opportunity. And the other thing was, back when I was working at Fog Media at the time, because that's when the first trailer launched, all the way back then, 2012, 2013.
Yeah. Yep.
I remember I remember watching that and thinking, wow, if I can get to work on a game like that one day, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
And it happened. And yeah, just how it came from there. And luckily, they said, Yasin put in a good word for me. I had to do a test like everyone else did. And
Mhm.
luckily, my test wasn't too bad. Then I was able to get the opportunity to work. And I said, been here for over 4 years now.
Yeah, and am I correct in thinking you just recently became senior level designer? Because I think a little while ago
Mm.
it was on your Twitter handle and I had level designer, but now it's the senior level designer. So you're obviously kicking ass, which is
Well,
great.
yeah. Well, no, it's nice to get that, for it. The makes me feel older than what I am, but like,
Yeah. Just wait for
no.
OAP level designer. That's the next
Yeah,
one. That's
that's
the
it.
next rung
That's
up.
it. That's what I'm looking forward to. Right? They give me my own like wheels on my chair at that point, so I can move
Yeah.
without standing.
Exactly. So I can imagine that
Mm.
early into development, obviously you're seeing what the ambition is for Cyberpunk 2077 just on a technical level. It must have been mind blowing. I don't worry, we're not going to go into anything too specific,
Yeah.
obviously, but it must have been Jesus. Look at what this studio is gunning for here,
Mm.
and the Night City is easily one of my favorite open world creations. I
Oh,
played it on
brilliant.
launch along with everybody else. I was playing it on the Series X. I had just a great experience, and just roaming around Night City became such
Mm.
a highlight. And again, the open world games are incredibly difficult because of the nature of agency within the main story
Yeah.
arcs. in order to not dilute that, and then you've got pacing problems because I'm off here, saving somebody's cat rather than trying to bring down a mega corporation.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was super impressed with is not just the design of Night City itself, because you've got all these different boroughs, you've got different factions, you've
Yeah.
got the gangs and everything like that. It all feels like a real place, and that is incredibly hard. I'm such a critic for open world games that the world don't feel alive, even though they could be incredibly detailed, incredibly beautiful, even immersive
Mm.
to a degree, but there's something that is lacking that extra layer of life to it that brings it alive. And with Ghost of Tsushima,
Mm.
that game was again a huge open world game, and the thing that made that feel alive was the wind system.
Yeah.
Everything was moving and bristling, and then there's wildlife and stuff like that. But that nature of just everything just moving because of the
Mm.
wind, it made it feel alive. And with Night City, it's very very different. But the fundamentals are kind of the same. Where there is life, there's populace, there's scripted NPCs going about their kind of business, and it feels
Mm.
like you're in that believable futuristic crazy city. And just driving around, listening to the music, seeing what all the different factions are kind of up to, just going through like the kind of Chinatown area, um it was just an incredible creation. And then doubling that down with the way in which narrative is handled in that game, all of the side characters, the story arcs for all of those, and it was such an impressive impact on the player because you really felt a connection to
Mm.
these characters, whether it is Judy, whether it is River, or Panam, or some of the other
Yeah.
characters in Johnny's band, for example. Like
Yeah.
the way in which, and I'm going to start rambling and let you talk for a little bit.
No,
The
no.
way in which those character payoffs had this incredible, it felt like an epilogue at the end of their arc. It was so
Mm.
unexpected and so wonderful. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody who's still maybe waiting to play the game. But Judy's in particular, I loved. And then Panem had a great epilogue as well, and a few others, River as well. They were all just so well realized, I guess, is what I'm ultimately trying to say. Like Night City is so well
Mm.
realized, and when you see it, you think, of course, that's how our open world game should be. Of course, that's how these characters are meant to feel real. But at the same time, when you're starting with a blank piece of paper, to get to that point and to make something feel alive is incredibly difficult. And I can just imagine like the iterations. It's something that you mentioned in your book is
Yeah.
like constant iteration, constant immersion, and riffing off different things. It's like, okay, it's not quite there yet, but we're gonna get better. We're gonna keep on improving it, and just to see it all come to life, and just having Night City as a creation. So I'd love to hear from you a little bit, if possible, about Night City as a level design challenge,
Mm.
because it's
Yeah,
huge.
mate. It's yeah, I know, right? I remember when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh god, like how are we gonna do this?" But yeah, the challenge. So I say one of the most biggest challenges and opportunities as level designer for us is the fact that like you can play this in many different styles, right? So you have so many options in how you want to tackle each location or that of like the missions, and some of those will definitely have an impact, as we know, on the story as well. And I think the thing from that, like I said, was figuring out how do you make each option feel meaningful for the player, like whether that be through the leveling up of their RPG systems or the challenges that you provide in the levels, these kind of things. That was like one of the biggest, I said, mixed bag of challenge and opportunity for us. How do we solve this? How do we make this meaningful and impactful for that of the player? And that, like I said, was the biggest learning curve for us at the start. But once we kind of figured it out, shall we say, there's still stuff for us to learn for sure. But once we kind of got into our stride of it, that's when it started to click. And especially in Night City, do you know it's the same chat we had one of the same challenges we had on the Division, because that's based in New York and Night City. When you have like one of the things that makes Naughty Dog, or should we say Sony Santa Monica's level design so great, with the fact that their games have more of a linear feeling, is the
Mhm.
fact that they're clear objectives of where you need to go. Right, like it's very clear in the vista where players should go.
Yeah.
But like when you have a towering city where nearly most buildings are like 60 stories high, you can't necessarily show that they're battling for attention, shall we say.
Mhm.
So for us, like one of the challenges as well was making sure that the side routes, the kind of alleys that the player would take to go through and explore would have some sort of reward, whether it be some sort of loot, narrative sort of story tying in, or to that of like, a small combat encounter, something there that the player can learn from. So making sure that we had this, like you said, trying to fill it out, and not just filling it out for the sake of, oh, we're just throwing things here, but
Mhm.
like meaningfully bringing life to the world, showing which areas are more dangerous than other districts. These kind of things really came through. And that was for sure, a challenge, but also one that I think we tackled very well. Again, we've got a lot of skilled and incredible developers behind this, and it's figuring out kind of. I think that's one of the biggest challenges of any open world, right? It's like figuring out how do you want the open world to feel, and again with narrative, thematics, all of this. When I say feeling, it covers all of this broad scope to it. So yeah, this is was definitely one of the biggest challenges of the level design, but also one of the most freeing kind of feelings as a level design, because anything was possible, right? Like you can do as much as you want
Yeah.
or as little as you want in order to offer opportunities for players.
Yeah. And that is something that is so important with not just open world game designs, but sandbox design as well. Is
Mm,
giving players not just a tool set, but a viable way in which to make use of that tool set. And if it is
yeah,
the entire stealth approach that you want to do, you maybe want to build your character purely to be like a hacker that can never get seen and is like this ninja type of build.
yeah,
The world has to give you the tools and the set pieces ultimately to be able to do that rather than um, not have that unravel because you've sunk all your points or your upgrade points or whatever the currency is into
yeah,
a particular play style, but then the game doesn't allow you to really use that play style and it kind of trips up that way. Some games obviously do kind of fall into that pattern, or they'll throw a boss fight at you, but the boss fight isn't designed to
yeah,
be a stealth takedown or something like that, a stealth solution, but you've put all of your points into hacking rather than,
yeah,
gunplay or something along those lines. So incredibly challenging, but I love games that do this emergent style of gameplay.
yeah. And that was also one of the hardest things for the open world is, like you said, the player might be so far into the game, you don't know when the player is going to jump into these open world events. You have a rough idea, obviously, because you have certain kind of like level gating or something like that. Like the enemies in this area should be X between X level Y, for example.
Mhm.
But like you said, if it's not, that's one of the things we always try to do. Even the smallest kind of combat event is like there's still something that, even if you aren't a big kind of gunner in this game, there's still some sort of opportunity so players don't feel neglected
Yeah,
for that. So yeah,
yeah.
again,
It's one of the few games where hacking is genuinely plausible or feasible
yes.
as a play style. Usually hacking is just for like security terminals or
Mm,
keypads or something like that, but the team managed to make hacking such a cool combat ability as well, and
yeah,
that's not really seen that much in other styles of games that have a futuristic tech hacking slant to it.
yeah. No, that was it, and it was nice to. I mean, again, that was down to our great gameplay team, and I think that was one of the biggest challenges I think for them was trying to make the hacking mini game feel engaging, also not you feeling too repetitive,
Yeah.
but also the reward of doing it would make it, like you said, feel like a badass for doing that too. So yeah, I think they did a phenomenal job there.
Yeah. So who's your favorite side character in the game?
Oh, I'm super biased on this one because I worked on Riverwood's quest called Fort the Law. So,
Yeah.
like, in it, for anyone in there looking for an Easter egg of me, if you go to the sex shop in there, it's named Maximum Pleasure after yours truly. So,
Well, I'm gonna have to boot the game back up now and
yeah,
just go
just to see
hunting for
it,
that sex shop. Yeah.
just to see it. So, yeah, that River for me, I think, is my personal favorite. And like I said, all of them have gotten a great fleshed out story,
Yeah.
and Judy gets the most love because obviously she was shown in one of the trailers, so players have got to know her a little bit better, shall we say, prior to the game. But each one of them has an incredible thought gone behind each character, and yeah, they've. Yeah, I'm just blown away by it as well. Because even as a developer, you don't necessarily always see what's happening in each department. So when
Mhm.
you see it finally come together, you're like, oh, okay, like this is great to see. I understand why we did X, Y, or Z,
Yeah.
and it all makes it work.
It really does, and those cars that you can ultimately get as
Yeah.
well, like the design of the cars. So before the game came out, I
Mm,
immediately pre-ordered and then got the deluxe edition of the art of Cyberpunk
mm,
27, or I think it's the world of Cyberpunk 2077.
yeah.
Because I'm a nut for concept art books. I've got far too many. They're beginning to stack up under my desk now because I don't have any shelf space left to show them. But
Which one's your favorite?
oh, my favorite concept art book. Let me see. So I'm looking on my shelf just now. It's probably. I'm a big fan of the art of Horizon Zero Dawn.
Ah, yes.
That is really nice. But I also really like the Bioshock Infinite art book as
Mm,
well. Bioshock Infinite mostly because of all of the propaganda stuff that you see in the
mm,
world of Columbia, and as a graphic designer in my profession, I love to see how games populate their world through like believable brands
yeah.
and advertising and marketing within these games. And I
Mm,
love the like the turn of the century stuff in Colombia from Bioshock Infinite because it does have, I mean, there's a lot of like racial propaganda stuff in it as well, but that's the nature of the time period. But to see the different rise up like
mm,
faction uprising sort of propaganda posters is such cool to just dive in and see. And then you've got the other things that you never really pay attention to at all, but
yeah.
it's in the concept art books, such as like the airships. Okay, so there has to be a company that manufactures the airships. So they'll have a bunch of posters or flyers that are maybe scattered around in a corner somewhere
Yeah.
or ripped off a wall. And the player, because it's a first person shooter as well, will just blow past that and they'll never pay any attention to it. But I always like to go into all the little nooks and crannies of these environments and just kind of
Yeah.
pour over. Okay, what does that newspaper say? Can I read that
Mm,
thing on the wall? And that's, I think, part of why I love concept art books so much is because you get to actually see all of the not just abandoned concepts, but the workings and a lot of this kind of the propaganda stuff, the brands and everything that you would
yeah.
normally never really get to pour over in the game proper. And Cyberpunk's deluxe art book, I adored because it goes into each different borough of Night
Yes.
City and how each one has a very specific style of the way in which characters dress is like kitsch, neo kitsch,
Yeah.
futuristic, corpo, all this kind of stuff, and everything within that. Again, it's talking about immersion and world building that makes it feel so believable. So if you're in a part of the
Yeah.
city that's heavy corpo, they're all driving like Cadillacs and they've got like
Mm,
10 wheels and everything. They're like stretched limos and the way their fashion sense is very specific versus
yes.
the kitsch side, which is, you know, almost like how we dress today. And then you've got this one in the middle, which is neo kitsch, which is like 80s pumps and like feather boas and leopard print, and
Yeah.
but also this kind of scientific science fictiony slant to other parts to the attire as well. And it's the same with the
Yeah.
cars. They're all very specific to the car brands, the car logos, and it's
Mm.
that kind of stuff that I just adore in games. And Nice City's got some of the best. I know I'm gushing about the game, maybe a little
No,
bit too
no.
much, but um, just to see the work on a graphic design level. That's what
Yeah.
really resonates with me personally, and it's just great to see. Like
Mm.
whenever there's a concept art book coming out, I'll usually try and like sit on my hands. My wife will put me in a straitjacket or something, so I don't hit that buy now button on Amazon. So I
Yeah.
so I get the book delivered next day. That kind of stuff.
No, mate, that's it's amazing what you can see from it, and like I love, like I just got recently actually bought the Horizon Zero, sort of like end of last year, bought that book and bought the Deus Ex, Mankind Divided one as well, and same with
Yeah.
Blade Runner. I picked up that one too,
Oh,
and
nice. Yeah.
oh yeah, like the cinematography in Blade Runner 2049 as well is some of the best I've ever, in my opinion, that there is out
Mm,
there. Like honestly, but
yeah.
I'm
Well,
also a huge fan of
the
Ryan Gosling.
the colors. Right. I'm gonna blow past that Ryan Gosling comment, but no, it's fair enough because oh god, I've forgotten the one where he's the driver. I can't remember the name of it now. It's
Driver. It's just called Drive.
It's just called Driver. Yeah,
Yeah.
that movie is awesome. So I'll let you off the hook on the Ryan Gosling fanfare. But yeah, the cinematography of that,
Mm,
again, renowned cinematographer, and that's terrible, but it's completely slipped my memory. He did Skyfall and he did 1917, Oscar
mm.
winning. Oh, that's so annoying now. I'm gonna get raked
Oh,
across the coast from my videographer for Buddy who knows cinema like crazy. Anyway,
let me see if I
but
can
the
find
look, yeah, the whole look of that movie,
Roger
whether
Deakins. That's
Roger
his name.
Deakins, that's the man.
Yes.
Apologies to Roger Deakins fans. Oh my goodness. But yeah, the striking color palette within that,
Yes.
it, it
Yeah.
it did the impossible where they took Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, which is a masterpiece, final cut
Oh
only,
yeah.
listeners and viewers. Don't
Yeah.
even bother with the director's cut or the theatrical cut. But they made a sequel to something that most people thought would be impossible. And
Mm.
yeah, the visual style of that movie is so striking, and they managed to somehow take Ridley Scott's vision and move it forward in a way that felt legitimate, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought like some of the elements as well, like, not to get too vulgar, but like how they thought about like sex with a hologram, like if
Yeah.
that was just something that again, you don't necessarily think about how that would change, but like even in this pandemic time, and again, I'm only going to stay on this topic for like 5 seconds before I increased your age rating on the podcast. But like we're seeing elements with like OnlyFans and these virtual relationships
Mm,
take a huge spike because of the time we're in. And for them to think about those elements there again, just showing the attention to detail, and as you said, like pushing forward, not necessarily just the spaces that we see, but like the actual interaction side of humans in this time period. And
yeah,
if you saw the film Her as well, another great one on how like these relationships can change. So yeah, no, I loved it. I think I watched it like not long ago. I got it on Blu-ray as well, like definitely one of my personal
yeah,
favorites for it.
yeah,
So yeah, no, it's great to see what people can do on these art books, like stuff that you may not necessarily see, the elements that like also like I like, especially when we talked about vehicles, like mechanical design, whether that be through weapons or that of vehicles
mhm,
in any game. With the concept artist, you can't just create something crazy. You have to actually think about how it would work. How does the reloading work? How would the engine power up these the wheels, for example? And there's a lot more thought that goes into it than I think sometimes people realize. So, yeah, no. And plus, I made the location where where the players gets the Porsche from. So I'm a little bit biased on which one my my car. They wouldn't give me a
yeah.
Porsche. I got a cap though, so hey, we got something.
Did you get to, because a lot was made during the run up, the promotion of the
Mm.
game, about the sound effects and going out and test driving the cars and everything to capture the exhaust note. Did you get to piggyback on that maybe? By any chance?
No, no, I wish I did. A friend of mine got to see the replica of the Porsche they did for the one of the trailers. He got to drive it, but
Oh, nice.
I was not. It was not me. Sadly, I was hurt. I won't lie. I was hurt. Like I've been looking at this as we were developing it for like years and years, and
Yeah.
then never got the chance. But no, like again, just great to see how people have taken these elements from cars to fashion, and again just thought about it differently is, yeah, really important, especially now. Again, like modern times, we're seeing streetwear becoming more and more normal, and tech
Mhm.
in being used in streetwear and athletics. So yeah, always something fascinating to see. And yeah, if you haven't, check out the Death Stranding art book. That's another good one. Yoji
Ooh.
Shinkawa is like, if you just look at the the bikes, or the design of his like suit, because I didn't realize a Japanese streetwear developer actually did a like raincoat in that style,
Ah, okay.
and it was,
Okay.
yeah, it sold out instantly. It was worth like $1,000 to $2,000, but
Wow.
like, again, just the designs of that is some of the best that for me when I'm just looking at it. It's incredible work there.
But the like Kojima's games in general have a very cool look, and I know that
Mm,
sounds a bit vague thing to say, but there's something just very, very industrial cool about Kojima,
yes,
and it's, obviously he's a fan of, cinema, Hollywood cinema,
yes,
usually in particular, but that kind of industrial design, that mechanical design, even you mentioned it previously yourself in terms of the exosuits, the big mechs, and the weaponry. It feels right out of the playbook of like a Neil Blomkamp movie from like District
mm,
9, and um God, that other one which is in the space station. My mind has just gone blank today.
I'm trying to think.
I
I'm
know
not
it's
sure
the
if I know.
Elysium. That was it.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's that like grungy, like functional tech, but feels
Mm,
futuristic. But at the same time, it feels like it was put together by a guy in a garage with a welder.
mm,
At the same time, and a lot of Death Stranding's tech feels like it's more functional rather than stylistic high science fiction fantasy. It's like functional science fiction, and
yeah,
that's where that kind of Blade Runner aspect comes into it. And Alien as well. Ridley Scott's been responsible for a lot of modern day science fiction like tech
yeah.
evolution, because it feels like it's been lived in, like it's real, like
Mm,
it's not this like hyper polished surfaces, of which, in the corpo side of the game there is still that, but there's also like the down and dirty industry side as well, which
yeah.
works just so powerfully well.
No, appreciate it, mate. 'Cause again, it's like it's one of those elements we talked about, like making the world feel lived in. It's not necessarily just adding like AI or events in there. It's how, it all looks visually, and we can see in our own world the economics has had impacted on different countries, some more than others, and you can see how, health and safety rules that might be up to certain Western standards are not met over in different parts of the world due to, again, the economy for that one. So it's how do you show that, and how do you see that, you know I, again, the pandemic, I think, is sadly shows a lot more of the cyberpunk world than I ever wanted to see in my lifetime. But yeah, like it shows a lot, and I think that, again, you get to see it and we get to push it
Yeah,
again further. Now again, cyberpunk's based in a different timeline
yeah.
to
Hey,
our own, so
at least you didn't have the Capitol building in Washington DC burning in your video game that ended up being a reflection of real life. So there's always that.
The way that I feel right now with working the Division and Cyberpunk is I'm slowly seeing the future come to life right now.
Yeah.
Division with the pandemic, then this, like, it's slightly slightly frightening. Each game I go to starts to come true in its own way. So,
Yeah. What did it say? Art imitation life, but life is now
oh
imitating art. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's it. So no, it's a one to see. But yes, so thank you very much for seeing those, mate, and talking about it, because again, there's a lot that can go into it, and many amazing people working on that. I can't speak for everything on that, because again, incredible people. It takes a team
Yeah.
to make all of this work.
100% it does. So before we wrap up, because it's been an absolutely
Mm,
blisteringly quick, just over an hour or so, and I could continue
yeah.
to talk for ages. You just launched your new book, which we talked a bit about at
Yes.
the beginning. So come on, then what's the timeline for the third one, the next one in the collection? Or are you going to take a little bit of a break?
I'm going to take a bit of a break this one. It was nice to be able to release 2 books in the span of like a year. And I thought
That's
that was
fast, yeah.
a big accomplishment to me and my team to that help bring obviously this to life. But for now, I think I'm looking to start it either the end of this year, early next year, and I think from there, we don't know where we're going to go with it. It might be stealth, it might be storytelling. We're not sure. We're going to look through that one next.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see as we go through. But yeah, it will be in another year or so for these kind of things. But yes, I'm just happy that these are selling well, that people are enjoying them, and that this can again fund future endeavors
Yeah,
for
I
us.
mean, releasing 2 in a year is a huge endeavor, so that's massively impressive. So.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize how much it was going to be, and even like the second one was streamlined. I think we did it in 4 months in total for the second book, but like even streamlining it, it still takes a lot out of you and trying to make sure. Because the other thing is, you don't want to release it and then be like, people say, "Oh, this doesn't apply. This is nonsense," and that's always in the back of my mind that you don't want to make a fool of yourself, but you also don't want to sell false information. So making sure that I get this reviewed by the peers constantly is again another huge part of the process. And
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's I said, glad that everyone enjoys it, and I'm sure we'll put links at the bottom of this where if people want to pick it up, we do have
we will.
physical copies, we do have e-copies. So if you do or are interested in to know more about level design, but you don't want to hear my voice or see my mug, then obviously the books are the best way to
Yeah.
go for it, guys and girls.
Absolutely. And before we really wrap up, you
Mm.
also have a podcast called The Level Design Lobby. So where can people find
Yes.
that?
So they can find that on YouTube, iTunes, Google Podcasts, anywhere that you listen to your podcast, Spotify, you'll be able to find it there. So just search Level Design Lobby, you'll find it there. We took a short break this month. We'll be coming back in, where was it, May? Again, I don't even know where we are right now. But next month is when we'll be coming back with this. So come join us there, and we'll be talking about more incredible level design stuff. And if you can't get enough of my smooth jazz voice, that's where you'll find it.
Awesome. Well, Max, thank you for a great podcast. I've had an absolute blast, and I just can't thank you enough for agreeing to be a guest and chatting about not just Cyberpunk, but your whole history, your
Mm.
experience, which is extensive and accomplished. The books, of course, as well, the podcast, and a little bit of movie chat as well, which was
Yeah.
unexpectedly awesome.
There we go. No, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for doing your show as well, mate, because we said I do think this is helping to educate others out there, mate. So I, again, appreciate you for the invite. Really, really do enjoy being on here with you, mate.
Thank you, buddy. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap on episode 37 of the Weekend Catch Up Club. If you've enjoyed this show, maybe give the channel a like, a follow, and maybe tell your friends about it as well. Until next time, when I will be back with another great guest, take care, happy gaming, and have a good one. Bye bye.